Good morning. The April 19th, 2022 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Department of Education auditorium and ask that you please silence all of your electronic devices. Today we will be facilitating a fair and responsible hearing, and I request that each of you speak carefully into the microphone, state your name and your title for the record. And I'll ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone. It's easy to walk away from it. We're all educators. We like to move around the room. But if you please come back to the microphone for the live stream audience. They can't hear if you get away from the microphone. So this meeting is being live streamed and it is being recorded. A transcript and a recording of the meeting will be posted on the DESE website. So you'll be on TV, remember that. As we get started this morning, I've got a little business for us to take care of, and our first point of business is to introduce our new Charter Authorizing Panel member, Mr. Kim Davis. Welcome back to ADE. Mr. Davis is a former state board member, so we're very, very pleased to have him. If you want to say a few words.
Yeah, no, really excited and happy to be back. Do my best to add value to what's already an amazing panel. So thanks for that.
Thank you. And Dr. Sutherland, would you mind coming up and introducing your new charter unit? We've had changes.
So Matthew Sutherland, Standards and System Support Charter. We have our new charter director, Ms. Dory Summons. Do you want to stand for us? And then we have our charter specialist, who is Mr. Tommy Coy. So they're going to do a great job. They're very knowledgeable, been with the department for many, many years, so we're really excited to have them.
Yeah, they're going to bring some stability to our charter unit. We've had a lot of turnover, and we're super excited to have both of them on board. All right, well, good morning, everyone. And with that, let's look at our consent agenda. Back to my meeting. And Dr. Sutherland has brought our minutes from the February 15th, 2022 meeting for us to review. Any questions, revisions? Not, I'll accept a motion.
Second.
A motion by Dr. Wright McMurray, a second by Ms. Saraceni to approve the minutes as submitted. Any questions, conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. All right. Action agenda item 1.
Okay.
Dr. Sutherland.
So Matthew Sutherland, Coordinator for Standards and System Support Charter. We have an amendment from Founders Classical Academy, and the charter is requesting to add a new virtual building with statewide enrollment and to increase the enrollment cap from 2,500 to 3,000.
All right. Hang on just a second. My sheet. All those speaking on behalf of Founders Classical Academy Charter, if you would please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. James, do you want to come and give us the guidelines, rules, procedures, all the above?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Whitney James with the department, and our founders will have 20 minutes to present, or actually for their presentation. There's been no opposition that I'm aware of to this amendment, and then following that, we will go over the legal review.
All right, thank you so much. And who will be speaking on behalf of the charter? All right, you'll have come up and you've got the little clicker there. Introduce yourself and you have 20 minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Susan Provenza, and I am the State Director for Founders Classical Academies here in Arkansas. And I appreciate your time today for the ability to come and talk to you about our proposal. So here is part of our team that we have with Responsive Ed. We have James Taylor, who is here with us today. He is our CFO and CTO. Elaine Plybon, who is our National Director of Virtual Learning, Casey Barton, who is our Virtual Learning Systems Administrator, Rhonda Bradford, our Arkansas Superintendent, myself, the State Director for Founders, Katie Stevens, our Executive Director of Finance, Curtis Shack, Executive Director of Data and Systems Management, Erin Duval, who is our CTE Director, and Marla Pearson, who is our Director of Special Programs. And just a little bit about our history. For those of you that don't know our school or are unfamiliar, Responsive Ed has been around since 1999. It operates more than 90 schools across the country with 6 different school brands, 22,000 graduates, 22,000 plus students, and over 3,000 employees. What we are here today asking is for 2 things. The first one is an expansion LEA. We would like to add a virtual school to Founders Classical Academies of the Arkansas Charter for 22-23. And then we would also like to increase our enrollment cap to accommodate 500 more students in that virtual LEA. We have current locations in Bentonville. That was our first Founders here in the state of Arkansas. And then we have our Rogers campus opening in the fall, and we have our West Little Rock campus as well. And Founders Classical Academies, we seek to provide an excellent and distinctive classical education that does 3 main things. It pursues knowledge, it promotes virtue, and it prepares our students for prosperous lives in a free society. In 2013, we opened our Bentonville campus, and it was the first open enrollment, tuition-free public classical school in the state of Arkansas. If you know a little bit about classical education, it's one of those things that kind of was historically only for private schools. And so we love the opportunity to have this as a public option so that any student may attend. Since then, we've added our West Little Rock campus, and then we're opening our Rogers campus in August. Little history and highlights about our school. We originally opened as a K-8 and then expanded to K-12. We've had 4 graduating classes so far with 3 National Merit semifinalists who went on to be finalists. Very high academic standards and some amazing awards in the academic areas, but also some pretty fantastic awards when it comes to extracurriculars as well, with state championships in track and cross country, and also all-state choir members. Our current enrollment, Bentonville campus has about 956 students. Our West Little Rock campus has 135. And currently we have 94 students participating in our digital learning plan. So what we're looking to do is add 500 students that would be solely in the virtual LEA. I've done a enrollment cap breakdown for you just to kind of show the areas, because this would be a statewide virtual school. I wanted to look at the regions and expectations for enrollment each school year. So we're not looking to add that 500 all at once. You can see there we anticipate that primarily Northwest Arkansas and Central Arkansas are going to encompass the majority of the students, but we do want to be able to offer it statewide. So looking at maybe 250 students next year and then increasing each year after that. Here is the district structure for us. We've got the Founders Classical Academies of Arkansas with our main district LEA there, and then the breakdown of the schools within the charter. So our Bentonville campus, our Rogers campus, West Little Rock, and then the virtual campus. So the purpose of this is really, we want to be able to provide students across the state of Arkansas with high quality college preparatory virtual education that includes best digital learning practices, adequate wraparound support, and really helps them on their journey to both graduation and then higher education and life after that. We want to be able to provide that flexibility to students and families in their pursuit of a college preparatory education. And we really want to increase the impact of Founders Classical Academies across Arkansas through an innovative, high quality virtual education experience. So Founders offers unique opportunities for our students in both in the traditional classroom and then through our digital learning plan, focusing on classical model of instruction. And so the goal of the virtual school would be to shift all of that and enable that program to expand its mission and impact across Arkansas. As it stands right now, unless you live in Central Arkansas or Northwest Arkansas, you don't have access to a public classical school. And this would enable us to provide that access to students across the state. Also, having a dedicated virtual learning building, it really enables us to be more intentional with both our teachers and students. It's not a shock to anybody here that teacher burnout is a thing, and we've heard about it a lot recently, and being able to dedicate teachers to just a virtual learning program and help them with both professional development and then the practice would be what we're after. We know that there's a high demand for virtual learning. COVID kind of brought it to the forefront, but it's not going away. It is something that families want and desire. And we know that there are those students out there who thrive in this environment, and we want to be able to offer that to them. So benefits to students. First, highly trained instructional team that's going to specialize in online teaching and learning. It's really important. Teaching is teaching, yes, but it's going to look a little bit different in a virtual school than it does in a classroom. And we want to really make sure that those teachers are experts at virtual learning and are able to reach those students and impact them. Programs and engagement activities that are designed specifically for an online environment. It allows us, again, like I said, to be very intentional with what we're doing. Having extracurricular activities that are suitable for an online environment. And then providing options and locations that currently don't have classical schools. And having that intentional focused support from the instructional team as well to support our students. There are also some great benefits to teachers. First of all, they're going to receive that fantastic professional development so that they can be specialized in online instruction. We want to give them the ability to focus on one method of instruction and be experts in that area, so that our teachers are no longer split between focusing on in-class, in-person, and online. And then also have virtual PLCs to assist with best practices. And then benefits to the program administration. This allows for some really wonderful tracking of data in terms of online students versus our in-person students when it comes to accountability. With a digital learning plan, as is right now, they're all rolled into one school. So it's kind of, you have to do a lot of digging to determine how you're doing. This makes it very streamlined. It also allows us to streamline personnel and resources to the LEA. We've got virtual teacher observations that are, we can really hone in on what it looks like to be a great virtual teacher and give good feedback. And then the data analysis of student outcomes in terms of their attendance and state assessments, local assessments, all of that. It makes it very easy for us to see how we're doing. So our intended outcomes, students engaged in high quality virtual program and supported through best learning practices that allow for active learning, effective authoring, and personalized lesson design methods. Also increase in student accessibility and engagement in the Founders Classical Academy in our academic model, and allow that for remote learning in rural locations. Increase the percentage of Arkansans that are prepared for higher education. Flexibility in student learning to meet individual and family needs. And then helping students prepare for a successful life beyond high school with accelerated learning, concurrent courses, workplace readiness, all of those things that are going to help prepare them for their futures. So again, in summary, what we're looking for with our amendment request is an expansion LEA for Founders Classical Academy of Arkansas to have Founders Online School, and then increase our enrollment cap to 3,000 students from 2,500 students to accommodate that statewide school. In terms of our waivers, we're requesting to keep the waivers that we have currently for our district charter. Any of the new waivers that are outside of that are only tied to the fact that there will not be a physical building for this school, as it is a virtual school. So knowledge, virtue, and liberty is something that we focus on in our founder schools, and what we would like to continue promoting across the state with the virtual program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. James, if you'll come up and review the legal review.
Nice to meet you in person.
Please stay up here for the legal review. I see you're standing here, just want to make sure.
I'll stay.
Okay, so just to clarify, again, I'm Whitney James with the department. Just to clarify, for the legal review, if I say that I have no legal concerns, that just means that they've got the correct statute cited and that there's nothing wrong there. But of course, the panel may still have substantive questions, even if there are no legal concerns.
Mr. Davis, we jump right in there with questions as we go through all of the waiver requests.
And on the legal review, it's organized a little bit differently this time. I hope it makes sense. We have 3 groups of waivers. And I talked with Ms. Provenza before, and it's my understanding that if this is a fully virtual school, they don't need a digital learning plan. However, in the application, they did have some waivers associated with the digital learning plan. So just for clarification, I've got those separated out here. Is that correct about the digital learning plan?
That's correct. If this is approved, we would not need a digital learning plan for our buildings.
In the first set of waivers, number 1 is attendance. I did not have any legal concerns regarding that waiver request. The second is 6-hour instructional day, no legal concerns. The third is recess, no legal concerns. The fourth is clock hours, no legal concerns. Are there any questions from the panel regarding that group? Okay. And the new waivers that are just for this virtual school are the next set. The first is school safety policies and procedures. I did not have any legal concerns regarding that waiver request. The second is defibrillators required and CPR. I did not have any legal concerns on that one.
So my question is, do you plan to have a building with your staff located in that building, or where will your staff be?
So the staff could potentially be in one of our buildings. If we were going to do that, we would have them probably at our Bentonville campus.
Okay, and so that building is already
Yes, ma'am.
outlined with all the safety guidelines?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The third waiver is emergency plans and communication. I did not have any legal concerns on that one. The fourth, eye and vision screening. Did not have any legal concerns. The fifth, fire hazard inspections, no legal concerns. The sixth, food services, no legal concerns. The seventh,
So food services, no students will be at home, so
Correct.
you'll not be providing any food services.
Correct.
The seventh is health and wellness plan, no legal concerns. The eighth, health and safety services, no legal concerns. The ninth is student discipline procedures, no legal concerns. The 10th, tornado.
Okay, let's stop there.
Yes, ma'am.
So talk to us a little bit about when you're running a totally virtual school,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're doing synchronized learning. So there is a potential for issues to occur.
Sure. And so part of that would be part of our professional development, working with our teachers on how you continue to keep students engaged when they are virtual and they're not there in the classroom, and you can't do some of those typical teacher things like proximity and those things. But there are some things that I think through our professional development we could really help our teachers with. We wouldn't be doing things like out of school suspension, things like that, that would normally apply in a discipline plan or ISS. Those kinds of traditional forms of discipline wouldn't be appropriate in a virtual school. So it would primarily have to be about engagement with the students.
And can you build on that a little bit for me?
Sure.
Considering that in a model like this, we all understand how important parents are.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a plan to think about how to engage parents in regards to disciplinary, or what does that look like?
Sure,
moving
absolutely.
forward if there are some disruptions?
Yeah, so something that's been really great about our current Founders campuses is that we really emphasize that anyway. With our schools, we want our parents involved in what their students are learning, in their education, participating, and so we're going to continue to have that full-blown expectation with our virtual parents as well, and work with them on what does this look like when you have your kid at home, and how they can best support both the teachers and their students.
And another question, not necessarily as related to the legal review, and just for clarity's sake, what we're talking about when we talk about an expansion is we're talking about a fully online expansion, that the expansion would not have any sort of added value to any of the campuses that you currently have in person.
Correct. It would be a separate virtual building, for lack of a better word. It doesn't have a building, but it's a separate virtual school. Mm-hmm.
All right, Ms. James.
Okay, we're to number 10, tornado and earthquake safety drills. I did not have any legal concerns regarding that waiver request. Number 11, facilities custodial maintenance, repair and renovation. No legal concerns. Number 12, the fire marshal program. No legal concerns. Number 13, report cards. No legal concerns. Number 14, Pledge of Allegiance. No legal concerns. Number 15, emergency first aid personnel. No legal concerns. And that brings us to the end of the list of new waivers. Are there any questions at this time? Next, we have the list of waivers that Founders currently has at their Bentonville campus. And what I've done here is I've updated the citations. If they had something that was repealed or outdated, we went ahead and updated on this sheet so that it is cleaned up. The first is acquisition of commodities. Did not have any legal concerns with that waiver request. Number 2, alternative learning environment. I did not have any legal concerns. Number 3, library media services. No legal concerns. Number 4, board of directors. No legal concerns. Number 5, general business manager. No legal concerns. Number 6, comprehensive school counseling program. Did not have any legal concerns. Is there something I need to add?
No, I think we're
Okay, okay. Number 7, superintendent, no legal concerns. Number 8, principal, no legal concerns. Number 9, teacher licensure, no legal concerns. Number 10, flag display, no legal concerns. Number 11, leased academic facilities, no legal concerns. Number 12, gifted and talented, no legal concerns. Number 13, grading scale, no legal concerns. Would y'all rather me just list 14 through 24 and say no legal concerns, or would you prefer that I go through these one by one?
I'm fine if you just want to list them together.
Okay. We have a list here, 14 through 24 is on the next page. I don't have any legal concerns regarding any of those waiver requests. Does the panel have any questions about that group?
I'll have questions, but
Okay,
keep going on.
Okay.
More of a holistic question.
okay. And then on the next page, On 25 through 28, I do not have any legal concerns. However, on number 29, school calendar, school start date, I know that oftentimes the panel asks for more information and rationale on that waiver request. So I'll ask Ms. Provenza for that.
Yes, so in the past, since our school opened, we have had the school calendar waiver in place for the school start date. And that was simply to provide us with some flexibility in terms of instruction. If we needed to, God bless you, stretch it out a little bit more or start the school year a little bit earlier in order to accommodate semesters. And so that's what that was there for.
So what's your plan for this year?
Our plan for this year, this current year, right this second, I think I have us still starting on the 15th because they pushed back the start date ruling. The 15th works out really, really well in terms of balancing your semesters. It gets hard when the fall semester is so short, and then all of your things have to happen in the spring with all of the other things that go on in the spring. So it's nice to have those semesters a little bit more balanced.
You want to go ahead and finish the rest, and then we'll start in on questions.
And the last three waivers on that list, 30 through 32, I do not have any legal concerns.
Thank you. Stay close.
I will be right here.
All right, let's start with questions. Dr. Wright McMurray, do you have any questions about the waiver or the application?
Thank you for your presentation and providing a little bit more detail on what you guys are planning to do. I don't have questions specifically about the waivers, but I did have some points of clarification that I wanted to kind of touch through.
Sure.
So, as it being a completely virtual environment, and I did appreciate how you kind of outlined your supports that you would have for students that have IEPs or 504 plans, but if we get into a situation with a student that we feel like that the virtual environment is just not meeting their needs, are there opportunities for them to transition to a brick and mortar facility that would provide that for them?
Sure. So as of right now, our brick and mortar facilities are in Central Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas. And for students in those two areas of the state, it would be a very easy transition for them to begin attending one of our brick and mortar schools if that were the case. If that were not the case, we would work with them on additional supports if we felt like it was something that we could support them through the virtual program, or we would just talk to them about what's going to be best for the student. Because if it's a situation where a virtual environment is truly not the best for them, we would need to talk with the parents and the students about that. Sure.
And then my second question, I see you have listed on your list of staff, there's a CTE director.
Uh-huh.
And so just was curious on how that would be offered in your virtual environment with CTE options.
Sure. So he is kind of the guru of CTE things. I'm going to speak to it as best I can. But I do know that is something that he's been working on this year with some of our other schools and with our West Little Rock founders, because he's here in Little Rock, so he's worked with it quite a bit. But our hope is to continue to offer those opportunities to students. We've partnered with Metro for some services for our students, and they're really enjoying it. So if we can open those opportunities to our virtual students as well, that would be fantastic. So,
thank you. I just know that we've done quite a bit of work with Virtual Arkansas and building out some courses that CTE teachers can teach in the virtual environment. So that may be a resource you may want to.
Fantastic.
Mr. Davis?
And my question follows up a little bit on the first question, and I'm really interested in getting your thinking around, particularly in Northwest Arkansas. Clearly, there is a demand, and some may say it's demonstrated by the wait list that you have in Northwest Arkansas. how are you thinking about potentially families? What happens with a family who is interested in being in the brick and mortar environment that may start off online? Are they given priority when it comes to a wait list? How are you thinking about potentially a family that may be interested in brick and mortar, doesn't have the opportunity to do so because they're not selected through the lottery, decide to do the virtual, but are still interested in being brought on campus? How does that happen, or what's the thinking there? Or will priority be given to those that are on the wait list, whether they are in the virtual environment or not?
So right now the way our priority is set up is one of the priority levels is for students who are already enrolled in one of our schools. So for example, if they wanted to transfer from the Bentonville campus to the Rogers campus, those students would have priority. It would work the same way with our virtual campus, since it would be one of our schools. If they wanted to transfer to one of the brick and mortars, then they would have that opportunity to do that.
Okay. Is that something that needs to be indicated in the application? It is. Okay. Is that something that needs to be, from a legal standpoint, is that something that needs to be indicated in some portion of the application, that students who are a part of the virtual are given priority in regards to enrollment in brick and mortar campuses?
If it's not currently in the application, if the school is stating it on the record at the meeting, that's an amendment to the application, so to speak. It's one of the changes that I believe they can make on the record.
Thanks. And then my other question has to do with the idea of maintaining culture. Obviously, what I know about the institution, the cultural aspects of what you do are critically important. I think it is something that is of high priority to the school and to those families that decide to engage around the type of education being provided. How do you think about transitioning that or pulling that culture into an online platform, particularly for students who may not be in relationship physically with the brick and mortar institutions?
Sure. So one of the ways we want to do that is through the synchronous instruction that will ultimately also take place. And you're gonna have both types of instruction in terms of virtual learning, and to be able to pull some of that culture in when the students have more collaboration time, for lack of a better word, when they are meeting together virtually. But then also our hope is that we can interest families across the state so that we create these little pockets of founders that are all across the state, where the students may be attending virtually, but then we create these opportunities, if they're in close proximity to each other, for them to come together and do some of those things that we're accustomed to doing in brick and mortar.
Thank you. Nothing else.
Ms. Saraceni?
I do not have any at this time. I just want to clarify only one thing.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not a question, that you did pull the waiver for guidance program?
Correct.
Okay. That's one of the questions.
No problem.
Dr. Flowers?
Thank you. So I think that the opportunity to offer and reach students virtually across the state is wonderful, but I do feel as though there's certain things that you may see, struggles in the brick and mortar that you may not see so quickly online. So can you speak to me about your wraparound services supports that you are offering?
Absolutely. So obviously we'll be doing things like small group instruction, things like that, where we can work with students through assessments, things like that. We're going to be able to identify. Also through that professional development, we're hoping to train our teachers how to look for those things online, because students are going to give you clues, and to teach them how to really look for that, so that they know how to offer proper support. Obviously we're going to have interventions where necessary, all of those kinds of things, to make sure that our students really have a great foundation, and then have anything extra that they might need to make them successful. Yeah, absolutely.
So the 956 students in Bentonville, and your cap there is,
Our total charter cap is, cap at each building? Off the top of my head, let me work on that one.
Okay.
I think it is, oh boy, I want to say that one is about 1,000 students.
we'll see if we can't pull that up.
Do I have the
Because
ability to pull that up?
that's what I want to look at.
Per school cap?
Because I think coming back to Mr. Davis's question about if students need to transition from one LEA to another LEA, is what is that opportunity during the school year? And it depends on, have you met your cap for that school,
Sure.
right? And do you accept students after you've established your lottery,
Right.
if that's in your plan? So that's one question to kind of see where you are in that. The second question is then you're asking for an increase of 500, and the way I'm reading this application is that you're asking for that over a 3-year period. So it doesn't lock you in to say that only students from the northwest corner, that 75 that you kind of planned for, but if you went over that and you were still under the total amount that you had planned for that year, flip back to that page. So if you were under the 250 for next school year, it wouldn't really matter where they are in the state. Those are just kind of your projections,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. Those are just projections based on kind of what we've seen so far in terms of interest. We know
And currently you have 94 students online, and moving to 250 online, you would have plenty of trained staff to be able to accommodate that.
Yes, ma'am.
K-12.
Yes, ma'am.
And talk to me a little bit about the idea of moving statewide. Means that it could be a child anywhere that is participating. So you will provide all of the technology for those students?
Yes, ma'am. If they have a need for technology and they don't have their own, we're prepared to provide that for them.
Including Wi-Fi, whatever they need?
Yes, ma'am.
And when I was reading through this, northwest, northeast, central, southern, I'm just kind of thinking is the whole southern part. And then there was rural listed. And I really didn't know Arkansas is rural. So
Great point.
what section of the state is rural?
I was thinking more in terms of, we have kind of our larger cities in those areas. We've got Jonesboro, we've got Little Rock, we've got the Bentonville area, and so just any of those areas in between is really kind of what I was thinking.
And where would the southern be then, if that were a city?
Oh, sure. El Dorado, Arkadelphia, I guess kind of the whole Texarkana, the whole southern part.
I thought it was interesting. I'm all about organization, so it didn't make any sense to me, sorry. So a student can be anywhere, and when it comes time to test, tell me how you're going to ensure that that we're getting 95% or more tested.
Sure.
In a secure testing site. So talk to us a little bit about how that's going to happen. I live in Bono, Arkansas.
Okay. For the students that are close to a brick and mortar, that would be a little bit easier. We can bring them in. For the students that are not near a brick and mortar, we're going to go to them and we'll set up a remote testing location for them to come, and then we will test them in person.
So that
we
might
can
be
still-
you'll rent.
Sure, we might get a ballroom at a hotel, or a facility in the area, something out of a church, whatever. Partner with a local school. Maybe we can borrow one of their rooms.
a lot of flags, so I have to move for,
It's all right.
make sure I got them all. I think I'm still stuck on school calendar.
Okay.
And our legislature have given us so many options for school calendars.
Mm-hmm.
And this approval today would fall under your Founders Classical Academies, which would give you all of these waivers through 2028. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around, this year you could start July 1 or after by decision of our legislators. So I'm struggling with why we would continue to give school calendar, school start date waivers.
I mean, like I said, it was really for that flexibility piece, for us to determine those learning needs and how the things were going to fall. But if that's a sticking point waiver.
I'm just trying to understand, because if you're going to provide 178 days of instruction, you know, is there some rationale? I'm just trying to get to the rationale, what you're
Sure.
thinking.
Yeah, so part of that is, I mean, I'll just be, really upfront. I kind of hinted at it earlier, but when you have those more balanced semesters, you're able to get more instruction in before students start being held accountable in terms of their statewide assessments. So, and where we've been in Arkansas, the snow always happens in January and February, and then you're having to make up a lot of lost learning kind of opportunities. So having those balanced semesters is a real help. But
So has your schools been starting early?
we typically start that. What is that? The second, third week of August, right in there.
So maybe a
So we
week
have-
earlier?
Maybe a week earlier. Yes, ma'am.
And then are your schools approved for AMI days?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is your plan for a totally virtual school? They would not take AMI days, correct?
Correct.
So would they go 10 days longer than potentially the other schools?
No, not necessarily. I mean, we could adjust that calendar because we're still going to have them held to that same standard.
Of 178 days?
Yes, ma'am.
So they might finish up to 10 days earlier?
They might.
It's not a question, maybe more a suggestion. I do not know if you're aware of the online endorsement academies that are free to teachers across the state. But I know in your rationale you talk about how it's so important for virtual teachers to be equipped.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just a different teach.
Right.
It's different
It
strategies.
is, yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of those opportunities, and if your staff could take advantage of that, because they could end up with a online teaching endorsement for free. It's through higher education. We have about 6 universities that are participating, so I would love to speak to you about that at the end, or give you information.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Because I do not think that the word gets out. I know we put it out in commissioners' memos, but it's a win-win for teachers.
Absolutely.
Because they not only take advantage of the endorsement and all the instruction, but also moves them up on that pay scale. So I think sometimes we just do not realize the opportunities that are out there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Talk to us a little bit about Fridays.
Okay.
So in your plan, it looks like students are doing asynchronous learning. If they need intervention, the teacher has identified that during the week. fill in after that.
Absolutely. So that's going to be one of those great opportunities to, like I was talking about earlier with supports for students, to really focus in on what they are needing in terms of their support. If they're needing extra tutoring, if they're needing a reteach of something, if they're struggling in an area. So those days are going to be very, very devoted to helping all of our students, and not just the students that are struggling, but those students who are also being pretty successful, because they need a push as well. They need some enrichment. So that opportunity to really help all of our students.
If a student were close to one of your brick and mortar schools, could they come in for intervention on Friday if they needed
Yes,
to?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Panel members, other questions, concerns, discussion?
Help me, obviously, I mentioned before that we can look at just enrollment data and get an understanding that there is some significant interest in the model that is being provided, particularly where there are brick and mortars. Help me understand the process that you went through, if any, to gain a better understanding that this is a model that parents outside of those brick and mortar geographies might be interested in. Give me just a little bit of understanding why you think that there is some interest in rural and
Sure.
Other parts of the state.
Absolutely. We've actually had families reach out to us with that and say, we would love to have a classical school in our town. That would be great if there were maybe more than 5 kids who wanted that in that area. And so what this does is that offers that opportunity to them. So we've had families reach out to us. We have a lot of it, and a lot of our success has honestly been word of mouth. That's how our school got to where it was. The families talked amongst themselves, talked to their friends, and that's kind of how we got there. And we're kind of seeing that same thing in other parts of the state where they're, hey, I've heard about you. We'd really like this opportunity. So we think it would be a great way to reach those families who want it, but who don't have access to a brick and mortar.
So let me just tell you where I am.
Okay.
This is just me, not everybody else, just me. And it's because your waivers would expire in 2028.
Uh-huh.
Just know that depending on what happens with the legislature, there may be changes to school calendar.
Sure.
So this year, I don't think there's any problem.
Mm-hmm.
But as adjustments come, we may have to pull charters back in and have another conversation about calendars, only because I think the point is what's the innovation? And, when we first started this, we had schools that said, I'm going to go longer, more days. I need to start early because I'm going to go more days. Or we're putting in a really innovative model for our parents to make learning more accessible to them, to the students, but also accommodate, the parents. And so it feels like over time we've slid back into following a traditional calendar. And if we're going to follow a traditional calendar, why don't we follow a traditional calendar?
Sure.
If you're gonna get all the advantages of AMI days and everything else, then why aren't we following the same timeline that everyone else is following? So that's just kind of where I'm stuck. I don't think we need to hold it up for that, but just know that you may get a phone call someday and says, hey, you got to come back, we're going to reconsider it.
Absolutely.
With more information, because I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to really think about if that's a wise move. Your point about having semesters, balanced semesters, is valid, and I think every school district in the state would say the same thing. So I think that's something that we're gonna hopefully get worked out
Sure.
in the winter, and maybe have a better ideal about. Any other, Dr. Flowers? Ms. Saraceni, any other? Mr. Davis? Dr. Wright McMurray? Go right ahead.
I do have one other question, and just wanted to possibly get an idea of your past experience with offering the online instruction, and what has that looked like for students that have already been in that system.
Sure. Yeah, so for our digital learning plan and how that's gone, it's actually gone pretty well. Our students and families have really appreciated it, and have appreciated the opportunity to remain in our model and in our school, but then have that choice for them. And like I said, it was a good Band-Aid during COVID when we needed it. And you know, we want to be able to do that statewide. I think the things that we've had, a lot of things that were really good about it, but then admittedly there's some things that were hard about it, and by having the online virtual school, I think we can solve some of those problems. When teachers are split between in-person and online, that gets really hard for them, and not having some of that professional development to make it really solid. And what does online teaching look like, right? So I think we can solve some of those, tweak some of those little issues to make it even better with standalone.
But overall, you felt like your students came out on the other side in a good position. They had
Yes,
a good
ma'am.
experience.
Yes, ma'am.
And any major challenges that you felt like that you experienced have been addressed in the plan you outlined here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm back to checking my notes. And I'm seeing in my notes that you have a cap of 1,200 at Bentonville,
That sounds right. Curtis, is that right?
and you're currently at 956. So
Yes, ma'am.
in your policy, you do accept students up until you fill up your cap?
Yes, ma'am, or fill up the physical space.
Right. At West Little Rock, it shows that you have a cap of 300, and you have 135 there now. In the new Rogers that will be opening this fall, you have a cap of 1,000 for that facility, and then you're asking for an additional 500 for the online, and that additional 500 will increase over 3 years to the full 500.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Team, let me find my sheet. If there's no other discussion, I'll accept a motion.
I make a motion to approve the amendment to increase the enrollment cap and to add the new campus virtual building statewide.
And this is through June 30th of 2028. Correct? Yes. Okay. Is there a second? All right. I have a motion by Ms. Saraceni and a second by Dr. Wright McMurray to approve the amendment request as stated. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. If you'll give us just a moment, they're going to complete their voting sheets, and we'll let them read those, and then we'll move on.
Terrific.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Dr. Flowers?
To approve the amendment request in new virtual building with statewide enrollment for Founders Classical Academy. I look forward to hearing about your success as you provide access to students across the state and produce college and career-ready scholars.
Mr. Davis?
Vote to approve the new virtual building with statewide enrollment for Founders in order to provide access to the classical model to families throughout the state of Arkansas.
Thank you. Ms. Saraceni?
I support to approve the increase in enrollment cap and to add a new virtual campus which will allow students across the state the opportunity to attend Founders Classical Academy and benefit from its model.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the amendment request. I believe the online model will provide opportunities for students to receive a high-quality education experience in unserved areas of the state.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
As you know, this will go before the state board for review at the next monthly meeting, and good luck there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, ready for the next item or a quick break? All right, next item it is. Dr. Sutherland.
All right, Matthew Sutherland, Standards and Systems Support Charter. The charter, Premier High Schools of Arkansas is requesting to add a new virtual building with statewide enrollment and to increase the enrollment cap from 600 to 875.
That's new.
Yeah.
600 to 875. All right. If all those speaking on behalf of Premier High Schools of Arkansas would stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Ms. James?
My name is Whitney James with the department. Premier will have 20 minutes for its presentation. As far as I know, there's no opposition to the amendment. Then we will go over the legal review following the presentation.
All right. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Dennis Felton. I serve as the State Director of Premier High Schools of Arkansas. Thank y'all for having me this morning. Just sharing again, we're very supportive of our national and our state support that we have here today. I'm not going to read the names, but we're excited to have the support we have nationally and locally. Once again, if you guys know, Premier High School is another brand of the educational models that Responsive Education Solution offers across the nation. What we're seeking here today is to add a virtual school to our Premier High Schools of Arkansas. We want the virtual school cap to be 250 students, which would change our enrollment cap from 675 until 875. I mean 625 to 875. We've been blessed to serve Premier High Schools in locations across the state, including the additional locations we'll be adding this fall. We're in Little Rock, North Little Rock, Springdale, Fort Smith, and Texarkana. Just give me a little bit background. You know, when our campuses open and some of the impact we've had, we have seen a trend of students not only being awarded high school diplomas, but we've seen teen parents, students that previously dropped out of high school. We've seen students have opportunities to earn college credit, and as well as getting those students engaged in post-secondary endeavors. Some recognition. We've had campuses just recently as 2021 to be recognized for the ELA growth in high school. That's our North Little Rock campus. We've had campuses like our Little Rock campus that's engaged in our professional learning community, project with the state of Arkansas to engage in that endeavor. And one of our schools has even been recognized by the Arkansas Department of Education Charter School Office for best practices in personalized learning. And so one of the things we're trying to do is add, once again, a virtual campus to our Premier High School for the Arkansas Charter. The new campus, Premier Online, will serve as a virtual campus for our Premier High School students across the state with a cap of 250 students. Looking at the district structure, Premier High School of Arkansas with our brick and mortar locations, and then we'll be adding our Premier High School Online. One of the things we plan to do is just provide this unique educational model to students across the state that's going to provide a high quality personalized virtual education. Once again, Premier offers the personalized learning model that's very unique to any other school in the state, and we would like to continue to offer this model through our virtual platform. One of the things that we'll ultimately plan to continue to do is this will work towards our mission. We want to continue to have innovative academic program access to our students. We want to continue to work towards decreasing the dropout rate across the state and getting some of these marginalized, disengaged youth back into the educational fold. We want to continue to be responsive to our student and our parents' interests. I think we've shared with you today in our presentations, as well as the data presented to you, as well as the letters from our parents and support, our parents and students talking about their experience with the virtual education, and then ultimately just replicating this best practice identified by the Arkansas Department of Education. There goes that rule again, so you can blame me. We do plan on having students across the state in various pockets. We see in the demand as we expand our brick and mortar locations that the communities have been responsive to this model and have shown an interest in this model. There gives you kind of a breakdown of the building caps for each location, and you see we've added the Premier Online that gives you the total enrollment. You also see our current enrollment in all our brick and mortar locations currently operating, as well as the interest in the virtual hybrid option for this school year. One of the things we've seen is the demand in virtual learning. You know, the past 3 years across our brick and mortars, we've seen an interest in virtual education. Currently over 130 students in our brick and mortar locations are currently participating in the virtual or hybrid option. And we're seeking, instead of, if we get approved today, having 5 digital learning plans to run into 1 virtual campus. We did research, and you can even see the demand is very strong here in Arkansas. I think the last data I looked at, Arkansas charters serve about 23,000 students. And out of those 23,000 students, 8,500 of them are interested in attending a virtual charter school. I think one of the things that we can all say that, you know, online learning is here to stay. It's one of the things that I know Susan mentioned, that, you know, COVID has challenged us, and I think we've learned a lot from it. But one of the things that there'll always be a significant percentage of parents and students who are interested in the virtual option. And I think it's also indicated in the data that 2 of the largest state charter systems are virtual education. One of the things we've learned also through our digital learning plan, you know, students can learn through a myriad of instructional options. We've learned about, Ms. Saraceni has come in about the specialization that's needed for these teachers that are engaging in a virtual platform. We've learned about what the instructional support needs to look like and professional development, as well as how do we increase that mutual accountability, increase using effective communication, and then still having that flexibility. And then one of the things that we home in on and we focus on in Premier is personalized. And so we would still argue that virtual education is still not a one-size-fits-all. It must be personalized. We've seen, since we've had students involved in our digital learning program, due to the attendance policies, it allows them to get credit for engaging in their coursework when it fits their schedule. We have students that are working from 8 to 4. We have students that are working from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. And so, depending on their schedule, when they can access their coursework. It's also increased the engagement and increased the flexibility for our students to have responsibility outside of school and able to hit those priorities, as well as still fulfill their goal of graduating from high school. And then using a virtual platform allows us as administrators to access real-time data. We're able to look at data, to look at trends, and be able to identify student performance trends as well as deficiencies on things that students need. We want to continue through this model to spread our mission and vision. We'll continue to provide hope through a caring, mastery-based learning environment where we're still trying to build more academic excellence in our students. Who will we serve? We'll continue to serve students that are looking for a smaller, personalized learning environment. Students who are disengaged. Students who have left high school just needing a few credits to graduate. Students who are not being successful in a traditional model. Maybe this student's a parent. Maybe this student's a part-time employee, a full-time employee. So what are the benefits for our students? They'll be exposed to staff members who are specialized in the training by national standards of online teaching. They'll still be able to participate in programs and engagement activities on our brick and mortar campus that are in close proximity and have the flexibility. And then it also provides accessibility to students that are not in close proximity to a premier high school. One of the things that we will focus on is making sure that our staff continues to operate like a professional learning community. Are we having weekly conversations around student data? Are we making data-driven decisions? Are we providing adequate support and instructional resources for our staff? The accountability. Being able to track student data that engage in this virtual setting. Being able to pinpoint what's working and what's not working for each individual student. And being able to make the necessary adjustments that needed. Also providing that teacher feedback and support to be able to support them in supporting our students. And being able to analyze data across the school to be able to make the best decisions for that school. So looking at a day in the days of in the life of a student who is on the virtual program, students will still get engaged in our career education program. They'll still have the academic advising piece as well as the college and career guidance piece. They have opportunities to engage in small group, one-on-one tutorial, as well as still trying to get students engaged in our programs, as well as the industry-based certifications, those communities, and our online certifications. We continue to provide support through our administrators, also our college and career advising, our learning mentor, our technology loaner program, as well as our learning facilitator and our student success center, which is located in those brick and mortar campuses. We're looking to partner. We know we won't do this alone. And so we're excited that we have people like the iSchool Virtual Academy, which Responsive Ed has been running over 10 years to be able to bounce our deal and use install partners. We have people like Virtual Arkansas. We've been working for almost over 10 years and working to offer additional course offerings and working with other charter online providers. I mean, you know, when we started with this, me and Susan, probably a year and a half ago, we started with conversations with, you know, Arkansas Virtual Academy, Arkansas Connections Academy, about some of the things they learn and some of the best practices. Very proud of the support that Responsive Ed has provided, as well as the state support to carry out this endeavor. You see, we have our national team members here to be able to support us in this endeavor, as well as be able to support us as we continue to move forward. Once again, you remember Premier High School started in 2013 with just 10 graduates. We're excited next month. We're going to have over 60 students receiving high school diplomas that otherwise would not have them. And to date, having more than 140 students with high school diplomas. Once again, we're asking to add a virtual school for the 2022-23 school year, and also to increase our enrollment cap by 250 students. There's just a small disclaimer about our waivers. I'm sure Ms. James will talk about that as well. We're only seeking the additional waivers we have in our other premiers, and then the new waivers we have are applicable to the virtual building. At Premier High School, we continue to want to keep the students at the front of our decisions and aiming to be responsive to the needs of the communities in Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. James?
My name is Whitney James with the department, and just to go over the legal review again, when I say I have no legal concerns, that doesn't mean there won't be substantive issues or questions. I'm just confirming that the correct code sections, standards, and rules are listed. Additionally, it's my understanding that Premier is not asking for a digital learning plan, rather this will be a fully virtual school, so they won't need one for this school. Also, and I forgot to mention this with Founders, if there's not a waiver listed on the legal review, that means either it's been rescinded or, this should be a complete list, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and we'll confirm that at the end of the legal review. The first set were the waivers that Premier had listed for the digital learning plan, even though they're not asking for that. I've just got it organized that way so that you can see from the application that that's what we're looking at.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On class size and teaching load, what's your anticipated class size and teaching load for your virtual teachers?
I would anticipate it ranging probably 40 to 50 students. You mean the entire load, right?
Okay. So you're saying like a high school teacher would have 40 to 50 students for the
Like English
semester?
1.
Per class or the total?
No, that would be total.
Okay. All right.
I do have a question
Yeah.
about the digital. So I made a note, and this may be a point of clarification for me. I thought you said something about 5 digital learning plans in your comments. What was that in reference to?
This upcoming school year, we will actually have 5 brick and mortar campuses.
In my notes, I wrote that you said 5 digital learning plans, and so I thought that when
So currently,
confused there.
each one of his campuses is operating under an approved digital learning plan. But instead of having that at each campus, instead what they're asking for is a virtual school with its own LEA number, and those students that want to take a virtual option would go to this new school. And so, I'll help you. You fill
Yeah.
in anywhere we go. But that's to prevent your teachers from having to do on-site instruction and virtual instruction at the same time.
Okay.
What she
Correct.
said. What she said.
Okay, thanks.
But they're not asking for a digital learning plan for this school because they don't need it. Okay. I had
So,
to
I
learn
want-
a lot too.
May I come back to the class size and teaching load? So in this virtual instruction, the reason you're requesting a waiver, because obviously 9th through 12th grade, the teaching load is 150. So I'm a little puzzled why you would ask for a teaching load waiver, number one. But maybe it's because right now in the law, in the rules, they haven't been separated. They will be when the new rules are approved. Excuse me, do you expect the class size might be larger than the allowed class size? Is that what you're thinking, possibly?
Sometimes I know we experience, especially with our students that are behind, that are taking credit recovery and things like that, so still giving us the flexibility.
So once those are separated, that's something Ms. Jones will need to make a note of, to come back with him and look at that, see how it really works out. Okay.
For the first 5 waiver requests under digital learning plan, I did not have any legal concerns. The next set of waivers
Can I
are
ask- I'm
so
sorry. I want to ask one more question. Recess does not apply to 9 through 12.
Yes, ma'am. We can, okay.
If Mr. Felton is agreeable to that.
Wish to rescind that
We
waiver.
can rescind that waiver, 616-102-85.
The next set of waivers are the new ones for this virtual school. On waivers number 1 through 5, I did not have any legal concerns. When we get to waiver number 6 regarding food services, I did ask that Mr. Felton contact our child nutrition unit and make sure that the way they do plan to provide meals to their students when they are on campus receiving the additional support will not cause them any issues with child nutrition funding. And it's my understanding that Mr. Felton did reach out to the child nutrition unit about how they plan to serve meals. Right now, it's my understanding that there are some waivers in place from the USDA that will allow virtual students to pick up a meal and not eat the meal on site. But I believe in June of this year, those waivers are expiring. So I have asked Mr. Felton to follow up with the child nutrition unit and make sure that he is updated on the status of those waivers going forward. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll just confirm we'll be following up with the child nutrition unit after waivers expire.
So, talk a little bit more about that.
And I have talked to them. Suzanne Davison communicated that since the waivers were expired, since this building was 100% virtual, that I would not need, wouldn't be expected to be serving meals. And all of our current brick and mortar campuses are serving meals.
The next group of waivers on this page are numbers 7 through 14. I did not have any legal concerns for that group.
But we have questions. So, same question I asked previous applicant is, what's your plan for student discipline? I mean, we've heard instances where students have misbehaved online, or I would think also that sometimes students don't participate and engage like they should. They are kids. I'm glad I wasn't recorded when I was a student, but kind of talk to us about what your plan of action and what your training will be around that.
So I'm going to piggyback a little bit off some of what Susan said. We think it's really going to start with professional development with our administrators and teachers, and then that's going to be coupled with our orientation. We really believe in this online environment. It's important to not only train our teachers, but make sure we're communicating to parents and students our expectations, and then communicating the policies that follow. That way they know whatever happens, this is the necessary intervention, but really just working with our staff and working with parents and students.
And I think Mr. Davis asked the question last time, so we'll go ahead and get it out there. What if a student just is not in the right place? If online is not the right learning situation?
We would continue to work with families. We like to think of ourselves as practitioners, and so if we're going to prescribe, certain educational practices for students, then we want to make sure that we're giving parents the best information they need. And so, whether that's one-on-one tutorials, a small group instruction, I believe in the virtual setting, what really stands out is the data. Okay, and so when we're making, statements about a student is not struggling, what data are we using? What are the indicators? And then are we using those indicators to drive the support to change what we're seeing?
All right, Ms. James.
I believe this takes us to the next page. The last two waivers in that second group are number 15 and 16. Did not have any legal concerns regarding those waivers. The next group of waivers is a cleaned up, updated list of the waivers that Premier High School of Little Rock has. And again, like with Founders, we've updated code sections and taken off anything that's been repealed, updated rule names. On the first page, under that heading, I have waivers number 1 through 4. I did not have any legal concerns. On the next page, we have waivers 5 through 9. I don't have any legal concerns regarding those waiver requests. On the next page, for waivers 10 through 16, I do not have any legal concerns. On number 17, personnel policies, daily planning period, I would like for Mr. Felton to please give some additional rationale to the panel.
This is a waiver that we have in our brick and mortars as well. We just continue to seek the flexibility to be able to design the teacher's schedule to support students, but this is not an attempt to burn teachers out or not give them adequate time to plan and prep.
So I think the question is, do you provide adequate time for them to plan, prep, and eat lunch?
We do. They're not teaching and eating lunch at the same time.
I believe that covers number 18 as well. On 19 and 20, no legal concerns. On the next page, waivers 21 through 28, I don't have any legal concerns. On number 29, I've also asked Mr. Felton to provide some additional rationale for that request.
Once again, this is a waiver that's existence in our brick and mortars as well. Typically in Premier High School, we focus on making sure we offer the 22 units that are needed to meet graduation requirements. And then in the event, if we had a parent or student that's seeking additional course outside of that, then we do offer that course or work with partners like Virtual Arkansas to provide that course.
Sorry, don't walk too far away. So, do you have student success plans on every student?
Yes.
And so if a student wants to take additional classes in a particular area, those are always provided?
It is.
Okay.
On that page for waivers 30 and 31, I do not have any legal concerns. On number 32, school calendar, school start date, I'd like for Mr. Felton to provide some additional rationale for that waiver request.
We'll try to piggyback off some of Susan. Traditionally in the past, we have benefited from having the flexibility of the school calendar because we do have a unique educational model. Sometimes we've, want to start early, even add days in to be able to get students acclimated to the model as well. I'm sure I'll be working hand in hand with Susan and the district team as we, look at the legislation, the decisions that are made here in the future as far as what we need to do, and then we'll be visiting with you all about any necessary changes that need to be made.
What date do you plan to start school this fall?
August 15th.
178 days?
Yes.
And on the last four waiver requests, 33 through 36, I do not have any legal concerns.
Do you offer agriculture as a CTE class?
Our course offerings are through Virtual Arkansas for agriculture. But as we continue to, the state gets approved, digital learning providers that, continues to increase our offerings as well. And then, of course, with the partnerships we're building brick and mortar as well.
The last thing I have, I'd just like for Mr. Felton to confirm that this legal review contains a complete list of the waivers they are requesting for this campus.
I confirm.
Thank you. Dr. Wright McMurray, would you start us off with questions?
Just one remaining, and circling back around to your CTE offerings. And so you say you partner right now with Virtual Arkansas to offer those courses. As a student matriculates through a program of study and gets into the upper level courses, how are you guys handling those offerings for a student? Because I know that there's some courses that are just not going to be available.
I'm going to speak to what we see historically. Historically, we've seen a trend of students that come in that have either already been engaged in a program or have completed those requirements. That's why we do focus on the 22. And so what we've seen is a lot of students are more interested in our industry-based certifications. And so what you've seen the state is a big push in this because they're able to earn the certification within a year's time. And then they know that automatically results in this type of pay or this type of employment. We've also seen, I think you've seen this too, with COVID, a lot of industries have become innovative. And so when you look at your OSHA 10s, your OSHA 30s, you know, your industrial technology, they're allowing students to engage in coursework virtually and earn those certifications. And so we see that seems to be the trend as well.
I guess just, and I appreciate that additional clarification. I guess just my question referencing back to the example of ag. And so some of those hands-on pieces, what does that look like for a student to have the opportunity to engage in some of those hands-on components of the course?
So we partner, right now we have partnerships with Little Rock Metro, partnerships with NWTI. We're working on a partnership, University of Arkansas, Hope Texarkana. And so you know they offer those hands-on partnerships as well. And so that's where we're really getting students engaged in the hands-on piece of it.
Okay.
And then that's leading to proficiency exams too. So students are able to earn those certificates of proficiencies in those programs as well, not just taking a class.
Thank you.
So just to clarify what your answer was, the students in the brick and mortar can go to other locations for on-site support?
Well, we have partnerships through our brick and mortar locations in those areas with career centers and higher institutions. And so the hands-on piece, that's very hands-on. The virtual piece, we still have virtual courses that students can take as well that lead to certification.
Okay.
But, you know, in the event, I mean, we would hope that, you know, because I'm blessed that we're in several parts of the state, and so that would be a student that would be in close proximity to someone that was offering a brick and mortar, like a hands-on type deal.
Mr. Davis?
Yep, first of all, thank you so much for servicing the students that you service. Considering that, I think most information would tell us the idea of wraparound services and being truly engaged with those students and those families are critically important. Give me an understanding on considering that these students will be virtual, how you plan to provide those additional support services, particularly to students that are that may be having some challenges in a traditional environment when it comes to education.
I'm very excited. You know, one of the things that we do in this premier deal, we use this word personalize a lot. And you know, whether we're talking about a student that's coming to a building every day or a student that's logging in virtual every day, in our mind, they still have to have adequate levels of support. And so one of the things that we like is we have these positions called, you call them student engagement special learning facilitators. And this is a person that has some day-to-day contact with this student and interaction and family about student progress, student outcomes, as well as those post-secondary goals. And then we have our managing instructor, our teachers that are working with the curriculum, as well as making sure it's aligned and making sure the pedagogy is there. And then we have college and career coaches, you know, that are making sure that, you know, not only, yeah, we're working on high school diploma, but, you know, y'all, we have kids coming to us have 1 or 2 credits to graduate. I mean, we got to get them thinking about what they're supposed to be doing after high school. And so anyways, we provide that as well as, you know, admin support. And so we always think it's about relationships. I'll be real honest with you. You know, our schools are designed small for a reason. It's intentional because we want very healthy relationships between all of our stakeholders. And so with that being said, you know, you guys have seen some of the letters of support from our parents. We really think it's because we're responsive, you know, that we're a small setting, They know who the administrator is. If they're having issues, they know who to contact. And so we think it gives them that small community feeling. And so to me, it's all about interaction and engagement and making sure that not only we're checking on those students, but we're making sure that we're working with the families and the different things they're faced with as well.
Talk to me a little bit, because, and I want to get really kind of technical and tangible around this issue. Support services are one thing when the student's inside the building on your campus, being able to provide all those things you just talked about. Talk to me how those things are provided when a student is not on campus. How have you thought about, what does that look like? Does that look like home visits? Does that look like daily calls? Help me understand a little bit of what that looks like for students who may be taking virtual classes.
Daily interaction, I would say. Whether that's via phone call, via Google Meet. We have a lot of our college and career coaches as well as our learning facilitators that are having video calls with our families. I would probably argue that we've learned through we've learned through COVID that a lot of things we thought we couldn't do virtual and we thought couldn't happen virtual, it can happen virtual. And so I think about that principal, that counselor that's pulling a kid out of the classroom, right? Taking them over to their office. And whereas that is a intimate in-person conversation, I don't think it takes away the value of that happening virtual. And I think that it's evident because a lot of us today, we're meeting a lot of things virtually. We're handling a lot of business virtual. I don't know if you guys got involved with telemedicine these days, but it's become a new norm. And so I think we'll continue to grow and we'll continue to learn, as well as just keep that engagement and action there, because that's what's important. Once that line of communication is broken, then to me, it's like you said, we'll have to go to those other dimensions, whether it's a home visit or something like that, to kind of see what's going on, because kids' welfare is important as well. And if a kid just comes up missing or we hadn't heard anything, then we're going to have to continue to work with other agencies to find out why. We see that in traditional schools as well with our population that come up missing.
Just one more question from me. Obviously, there are a lot of learnings that happened during the last couple of years in COVID that has enhanced schools' ability to sort of connect and do this work with families and students, right? And we hear from institutions like yours and others that are saying, we've learned a lot. We want to offer the services in an expanded way based upon those learning to families and students. That's the institution saying, we've learned some things, we'd like to bring our model to families and students. Have you heard from families and students saying, we'd love to have this model, and if so, tell me why?
I have. I'm one of the few individuals that's blessed to spend a lot of time traveling this state. I probably touch every corner of the state, usually every other week, and be able to engage in, as well as new communities and current existing communities. I've seen a trend of parents and students that are interested in flexibility. We have parents and students who have other responsibilities outside of school. And typically what we've seen is those students have actually become disengaged and dropped out of high school because of the red tape and because of the lack of flexibility in the schools. And so they're excited about having the flexibility. They're excited about having this unique model in their communities. One of the things we've seen through the digital learning plan is having access to a personalized learning model that they may not have access to in their traditional district. And so as I travel the state and engage in conversations, yes, I've seen support for our families and students, as well as I even had some families and students write me and email me as they heard about us coming to you guys for this offering.
Thank you.
Dr. Flowers?
Questions have been answered. Thank you.
Ms. Saraceni?
Since you're asking for an increase in enrollment cap with the teacher shortages like it is across the state, and you're asking for quite a bit of an enrollment increase, what is your plan and for recruiting new staff, or what's your anticipation? Do you have a plan?
We do. We do recognize the need in the field. Me and Susan have been engaged in several career fairs across the state. I think we're at the University of Arkansas last week before last. Also, working hand in hand with those educated and preparatory programs. We've realized if you kind of go to those programs, talk to them about your needs, a lot of times they are on the front lines and they know the students that are in the pipeline, or they can connect you with other organizations that have teacher preparatory programs as well.
I've got some cleanup questions.
Okay.
So you're going to need your application.
Say it one more time.
You're going to need your application. On page 8. And thank you for putting page numbers. It's the little things that make life easier. It's the enrollment cap breakdown. And I stress this for every charter because it's so important that we get this cap right, because if you're not prepared for a bunch of people, then you want to phase your cap in over time. So your request is for 250 seats at Premier Online, but this document shows 245 in the third year. So is that a typo? Should that be 250? Are you planning to go 195, 220, 250?
That should be 250.
Okay. And you're planning to phase in at this rate? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's the first question. On page 13. In the paragraph under where it says describe the technology access, the third sentence says a checkout system is in place for students to access coursework and digital content. I need you to explain that one.
Typo. That should be Chromebooks or like digital hotspots. I don't know where. It has to be a typo.
So-
because the checkout system is for devices.
So if the students need anything to be able to do the full virtual experience, that's what you're providing.
That is correct.
You can only imagine when I saw the word coursework.
Yeah, I'm sitting there looking like,
Okay.
it'll be tough. You have to check that out.
Page 16, please. So I'm looking at the sample student schedule, and 10 to 11 is not accounted for.
That's a typo.
What's going to happen from 10 to 11?
It'll continue to provide students either time for independent academic work or small group instruction or one-on-one tutorial.
So I was a little, so I was a little confused. So everybody checks in the morning with their mentor. Is that Monday through Friday?
Yes.
And then they may be in small groups with different teachers depending on what they're working on. And is that kind of how it's going to flow?
Yeah, but I don't want to be misleading at all. This is a sample. Remember, everything we're going to be doing is personalized, and so it'll be individualized for the student need. I may have one student that needs 1 credit, and you can imagine what does this look like for a kid that needs 1 or 2 credits. May have a student that needs 8 credits because they're behind a year, which may have them spending more time with intervention and more time direct instruction. So I just don't want to be misleading. This is not what's for everybody. It's just a sample to give you an idea of what it may look like.
And then I was excited about the after hours, 5 to 8, because I think you alluded to, some of our students may be working and helping the family, and they may need to access their classes after hours, or maybe they're midnight people like I am and they like to do their best work around midnight. So kind of talk us through your flexibility for your staff members. How will they accommodate the needs of these students?
And so one of the things, of course, is, that engagement piece, looking at students. Of course, we have a student that's working full time. There has to kind of be a different expectation of their engagement when they're logged in and things of that nature. At the same time, as Mr. Davis, related, make sure they're watching the data too, because we're not just having staff members just kind of did he log in today? Are you engaging in the coursework? How much time they spent working in the course? What are the concepts that they're struggling with in that course, and does that need to warrant a small group or one-on-one tutorial?
So I think the two final things become attendance. We saw a lot of interesting things across the state with attendance collection this year and last year. So I know you have requested a waiver for attendance, but kind of talk us through a little bit about how you'll determine a student is present or absent during that week, and how are you going to ensure that you test 95% or more?
On the attendance piece, it's really making sure that our teachers are making sure the students has met that threshold as far as the time spent. Like you said, we've learned a lot through COVID, and we got some students that kind of got creative on how to be logged in for a long time without doing a whole lot. So looking beyond just how much time spent in a system, what they've actually completed, which helps us with the reports we're able to access in our system. As far as the 90% threshold, as Ms. Provenza stated, we would set up remote testing sites for students that are in areas that are not close proximity to our school. And I'll be honest with you, we're working on culture. It's a culture deal. How do we have the conversation with parents and students about why are we taking this assessment and what does this assessment lead to? And then put some incentives together. We're high school, but still put an incentive program together. That way the kids have a carrot to want to be able to take the test, and then not just take the test, put their best foot forward.
What grade levels are most of your students now? Do you have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th?
We're 9 through 12. Typically, right, because of the model, sometimes you get on the higher end of 11th and 12th graders because we're getting a lot of those kids who have either dropped out of school the previous year or supposed to graduate last year.
Panel members, other questions?
The idea of two things. One, talk to me a little bit about, and I think you've done a great job of talking about data collection. Talk to me about how that's used on a daily basis, and then I do want to dig a little deeper in regards to the identification and development of teachers in regards to this model.
Okay.
So it is, some places have a sort of traditional pipeline to their teachers in the classroom. Some have non-traditional programming that they really connect with and draw from. Where are you getting your teachers from? What does development look like? And how is data used to inform their work?
And so one of the things that we do, I talked about kind of the recruitment, and of course there are some processes in place where we're looking for as far as the credentials that teachers should have. We're blessed that Responsive Ed, has a robust team as well to be able to support us with this training. And so because the model is different, we do get our teachers engaged in a very intensive kind of in-service training, lasts almost 2 weeks of them learning the expectations of and the processes of the model, but at the same time, the support systems that they have as well. And so that's done internally. We get out and recruit traditional teachers as well as non-traditional teachers. But one of the things that we try to do is make sure that training is uniform, and then it's continued training. And so the beauty of being in a state like Arkansas, almost 10 years, is that Premier High School is not a thing that started yesterday. And in the state of Texas, it's been over 20 years. And so when you look at the bigger picture of a professional learning community, which I've been appreciative to have, is I'm able to connect, my novice teachers with some of my veteran teachers to give them that additional support as well. When you're looking at the data, which goes hand in hand with all of this, is we are seeking to operate like a professional learning community. And when you operate as a professional learning community, there has to be ongoing conversations every week that's around the data that's involved in the school. And so whether that data looks like attendance, whether it looks like a local assessment, whether it looks like discipline, we're using that data to have the academic conversations. And then there are times where we're just looking at things like literacy and math and having conversations about, okay, we see these trends and what do we need to do to address some of these deficiencies, or, what's working well, because it seems like, we're seeing an increase in this area.
10 years in Arkansas, right? I think you mentioned 60 graduates. Is that correct?
140 graduates. We got 60
140.
going to come out next month.
100. Okay.
So hopefully 200 this summer overall.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Obviously, every school in every school district, there are students who, can't always get across the finish line. I think that there's some interesting learnings that can come from that. For the kids who don't get across, the young folks who don't get across the finish line in your model, what are some of the things you're hearing on why that is the case?
It's typically, it seems like it's the responsibilities outside of school and not being able to balance those. And then there's that flexibility they're seeking. So we have students that are going, if you look at some of the communities we're in, you got schools that are big as 1,000, 2,000 students. And not bashing those schools at all, but often you'll have these small group of students that are kind of falling through the cracks. They become disengaged. Now remember, this is not the kid that's coming to school, stand on top of the desk every day, right? This is not the school that's this is not the kid that's getting everybody's attention. They're just becoming slowly disengaged, and then it looks like them working 15 hours at Walmart. Then it becomes 25 hours at Walmart. Then it becomes 40 hours at Walmart. It's like, oh well, I'm making $16 an hour, so I guess that 1-2 credits I needed, it's okay. Also, looking at the students who have, their parents, they've, been told that maybe they need to focus on being a parent, or we have students that, they have to help financially at home. And so those students, when they've kind of meshed that threshold, y'all know society, you hadn't graduated, you're supposed to graduate, then you're out working in the field, you're helping provide for family, who's still in your ear about getting that high school diploma? And so we've seen that students have appreciated the support because we're a small school and small staff. And really, if I had some of my staff members here, they're like parents for some of these kids, because they're not only have their educational interests at heart, but they care about them as people. And that makes a difference for these kids.
Yeah. And my final question, I hesitate to say that, but I think it is my final question. How are you identifying these kids? And talk to me a little bit about where there are brick and mortars, relationships and partnerships with local school districts, be they public charters or traditional school districts.
It's very interesting, the identification part, because when you get yourself, I guess, involved in this type of work and education, and then you get yourself involved with this type of population that you're serving, you're not alone in the fight. There are a lot of community agencies that are working with these individuals, whether it's the nonprofit organizations, whether it's state-run organizations. And so once you become to educate people about what you are offering, it's so it's fruitful to be able to have them communicate them wanting what you have. And it's kind of, we couple together to dive at, this group of students. As far as the partnerships go, we talked about our partnership with Little Rock School District and offering a Little Rock Metro program and CTE programs as well. We plan to, as we go in communities, one of the first things I do is I do reach out to superintendents. It's a very generic email that talks about my educational model, talks about my interest in partnering with that school. And because it goes back to the identification piece. A lot of times, as we work with these counselors and administrators, they know it well before the kids just walk in the streets, well before the kids become disengaged. And so what we think is, as we continue to develop healthy relationships with districts, we'll be able to save more kids. because at the end of the day, we all want what's best for kids, no matter where they're graduating from.
See, I knew I shouldn't have
So
said
you said
my
you had
last
only one more.
question. I know, I know. Your relationship in regards to development of teachers with local co-ops. Are local co-ops a part of your plan in regards to teacher development?
So us being a charter, we typically partner with people like APSRC that we participate in their, not only their beginning administrative program as well as their novice teacher program. And we actually have a couple deals going right now where they're providing, additional instructor support for our teachers. We talk about that data, and so we have, coach coming in that's working with our teachers on how do you analyze that data, how do you use the data, and as well as a leadership coach from that same co-op that's allowing us to work with our leaders. Because sometimes, we're in the same fight sometimes with leaders, developing leaders. We constantly want to grow and develop our leaders to become better leaders.
So, under the rules for the school rating system, an open enrollment public charter whose mission and enrollment are primarily focused on students who've dropped out of high school or are identified as at risk of dropping out, has allowed the premier schools to be exempt from a letter grade. And I'm assuming that you would request that Premier Online be included in that list?
That is correct.
Any other questions or comments from the panel? All right, when you're ready, I'll accept a motion.
I move approval of the application.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray to, and I had a little trouble hearing you,
Sorry, I was a little choked up. I move approval of the application.
to accept the amendment as requested.
Yes.
Okay. And it is set to expire in 2023, June 2023. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Wright McMurray to approve the amendment with the enrollment increase from, what number do we settle on? 625 to 875. So that would be 250 students at Premier Online over the 3-year period that we outlined, with the expiration being June of 2023. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. If you'll wait just a moment, we'll hear from our panel members. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I support the amendment. Premier High Schools of Arkansas has implemented an effective model that provides opportunities for at-risk students to earn a high school diploma. I look forward to seeing the results as they replicate and expand this flexible, effective model in a virtual environment.
Ms. Saraceni?
Support the amendment for Premier High Schools of Arkansas to add a new virtual campus as well as increase the enrollment cap to 850. I'm looking forward to see the impact of this model across the state on students as well as the dropout rate. This virtual hybrid model can meet the needs of students across the state through anywhere, anytime, and on any device flexibility.
Thank you. Dr. Flowers?
So I look forward to hearing about how your personalized learning model and supports will continue to engage those potentially hard to reach students while providing the necessary resources to ensure they are college and career ready.
And Mr. Davis?
In order to serve a population of students that need added flexibility and additional personalized support, I vote to approve the increase in enrollment cap and the virtual book.
All right, congratulations.
Thank y'all.
Panel members, any other business before us today? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion by Ms. Saraceni, a second by Dr. Wright McMurray. All those in favor? Thank you, panel members. Meeting is adjourned.